Who would be a Wolves fan, eh?
On goes ball. People might yet win it here for Wolves. Blasting the shot. What a goal!
Hello and welcome everyone to today's episode of Wolves Fancast, part of the Audi Podcast Network. Joining me this evening, I've got Jeffo, I've got Ed, and I've got Stu. Stu, as the man in the New York Jets jersey, how's it going?
Well, I've got mute ready just in case I have to celebrate, but let's just say the likelihood of that happening is the likelihood of Gary O'Neill being in at Christmas. So, hello.
Well, that's how we'll start, and that's how we'll. We are going to be talking about obviously the Luton game, all the controversy within it, all the poorness within it as well, because it wasn't exactly a great game. Let's be honest. We're also going to talk a bit about Gary O'Neill as well and his tenureship so far. I mean, usually, guys. I'd say for those who have listened for a while, big shout out to everyone who's listening live, of course, on YouTube. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons. We do start off with the team lineup, but I'd be curious about when this last was. But we had an unchanged lineup for the first time, it feels like, in forever. And I guess, Jeffo, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's probably a good thing to say that O'Neill is kind of getting a feel for where his best side is now, and he's kind of understanding, okay, who's the best for his system that he wants to set up, and where the evolution of where he wants his football to go is. When you look at it and you look at the bench, it's nice to see that the players there who could come in and make a difference, but quite a few of them there are people who we're wanting to develop. So yeah, Tommy Doyle's coming in; he's not been around the side much. He's young, he can develop. Traore, Hugo Bueno, he's kind of like 50-50 with Nuri. And the rest of them, they're players who have got to force their way into the squad. So it's a good problem for him to have, that he's got players who are not playing, but the fact that he's now finding this evolution step and how he wants to do it is a positive.
Yeah, I think I agree. And hopefully, I think it feels like the honeymoon period's a bit over for Gary O'Neill now, and he's really kind of got to make his mark, which didn't really happen, if we're going to be honest, yesterday. But I think the fact that he seems to have found this lineup, albeit now that it's going to be disrupted for the next 3 games, hopefully stands us in good stead. I was going to say, before we go on to the game itself, I'm curious to kind of get your guys' thoughts on this. Is that there's obviously a lot of talk about Luton's ground and it being, I guess, lower level, for want of a better term, to put it nicely, I guess. The fact that it is almost incredibly traditional. It's in the middle of like a load of terrace houses. Now, for you guys, what kind of stadium do you prefer going to? And, we're all friends here. If you say you like going to a new one, no judgment, or if you like going to like the traditional one, because I know people who, for example, hate going to Goodison Park. It's like a stadium that's rich in tradition. It's crap. It's a crap ground. It needs to get knocked down. They need to put a new one in there. You can't see half the time, etc., etc. So I'll start with Stu, because I know how much of a way there you are. Between the two, I guess, ends of the spectrum, which ground prefer going to?
I'm very few ones left that I've never been to anymore, and I've been to Luton 3. I think that was the 4th time. It doesn't get any better, but it's hard to answer, because you think of somewhere like the Emirates, but the Emirates for away fans is terrible, because the rake of the lower tier is so shallow that you can't, if you're stuck behind someone like 6 foot or above and you like Dan size, you got no chance. It's not, considering that's not, what, 20 years old at best. It's not great. So they've all got their kind of the little quirks and things about them. You don't really want to go to Newcastle because you're high up in the clouds anyway. But again, do you want to go to Luton and have 5 poles in the way, which we did yesterday, and that was sitting right behind the goal, standing in a square area about. For personally, I'd go to places like yesterday, because Leicester and Southampton look the same, Derby and Middlesbrough look the same. Because but yeah, for me, it's quirky ones rather than not so much modern versus old, just quirky rather than boring.
Ed, how about you? Are you sort of sit on this?
I think I just want a good view, especially from a away day point of view. I think that's all I really care about, because the only ground I love going to is a Molyneux. The rest of them, as long as I've got a good view of my team, genuinely don't care. I think that's probably where I stand with it. I've been to Goodison, and you sit on the wooden benches with the numbers painted on with white emulsion, and it's not a fun experience, but it does have the hipster feel of going to an old fashioned ground, and that is good in a way. I've been to some identikit grounds. I've been to Swansea's ground when it first opened, and you kind of did feel like you were in a new ground. But again, it looked like all the other grounds. So I think I sit in the middle. I think all I care about is a good view. I think I can take or leave anything else because I'm not there for the facilities. As long as it's got a working toilet and a good view, I'm happy.
Well, on the toilet situation yesterday, the main one that's been there for 100 years, there was room for 3 average-sized blokes at the trough, 2 cubicles, no light bulb. And that was in the old one. In the new one, there was a little bar area, which I'd never, ever seen before, which I don't know if it's been knocked through or they've just gave us access now because it's a Premier League directive or whatever. But that neither of the blokes or the women's, they had to have their door open because you couldn't see into it because it was basically in like Al-Qaeda cave. No lights. So there were people using their phones to piss with. It was ridiculous. So there were toilets there, but you just couldn't see them.
I feel like there's a metaphor in there somewhere, but we'll move on. Okay, let's talk about the game because I've pushed it back as far as I humanly want to. That first 20 minutes was one of the worst 20 minutes I've seen so far of Wolves this season, and appreciate that there's a decent amount of selection there, but we just didn't turn up, did we, Jafo?
It's just the way that they seem to be setting up. I think there must be some kind of chamomile tea or some kind of nice whale sounds in the dressing room before they go out, because the amount of times they've come out flat this season is disappointing. Really, it's just Wolves and the whole feeling around the club at the moment. It's painful, and I think everyone's just getting a little bit numb to it, and it's. And, saying that for a lot of last season, for the starts have just been so frustrating. And the way we've started halves, normally been second half in some of the recent seasons, but it's the way we've gone into games and we've found ourselves chasing our tail all the time, that we haven't got this sort of get up and go energy that's needed in the Premier League. It's just not been seen for since we were in Europe, really.
Yeah, it's just bizarre. I found like how we just didn't kind of match any level of their intensity, and don't get me wrong, Luton are going to struggle this season. But they're definitely going to finish in probably like the bottom 5 places, and that's me being very diplomatic, to be honest. And they're going to rely on home form and try to get into a team like Wolves. And I don't know, I sort of felt, Ed, that after Liverpool, where we started so well, that was like the blueprint for us in terms of how we should start the games. Too much to ask, is it?
No, energy and effort is not too much to ask, I don't think. And what are Luton going to have other than that, in all fairness to them, and that's not very much, is it? They are going to have to try. They are going to have to run a lot, and they are going to have to get in amongst it. And we weren't up for that fight in the first 20 minutes or so, and that has to be, some of that has to be on the manager, some of that has to be on the players. The way we were set up seemed very narrow, and I just think it was just the effort thing, wasn't it? It was just pure effort, and we didn't show any. We didn't show any effort yesterday, especially in that opening first 20 minutes, and we can't be outfought by these teams that are going to be in and amongst this relegation fight that we're going to be in this year. And I think, yeah, I don't think it's too much to ask to just to try, and it didn't look like we were trying. That's what it felt like to me from what I've seen. Yeah,
it just, it didn't kind of match up at all. I mean, like, you look at Gary O'Neill's post-match stuff afterwards, and it was like, I'm extremely disappointed. First 25 minutes, we knew it was going to be a test mentally. Going man for man, we lost every duel. When we went in, our forward players bounced off them. Nothing was sticking. Where it dropped into midfield, they were faster than us. And he's right. And I think something that sort of stuck to me, sort of after watching it, and you could see it. Just we were second best. And like, you look at like our average player positioning, and like the second, the red card didn't help matters, but it just seemed way too like congested. We just didn't seem to have any sort of fit and flow. It always reminded me, in a weird way, of how we were against Crystal Palace, where we just didn't have any balance. And you're right, it's like we weren't lined up tactically right, nor did we have the right mentality. And frankly, I think if we were against a half decent team, we'd have got spanked.
Yeah, and it wasn't even I mean, I said in the preview show in the comments that we'd lose 1-0 because I had absolutely no faith whatsoever about this team. But there was that thing earlier in the season, was that a few weeks ago, where someone put their video of the how the players strolled out of the tunnel at halftime, like they couldn't be asked. That's how they did it again. But to start the game, the body language was atrocious, and it's not like I'll be like pseudo-scientific and whatever, or I'm an expert in these things. You can see when people can be asked or not, and they did not want to know. From kickoff, they didn't want to know it at all. And he can say all he wants, but Pricey put that thing in the group at halftime. At halftime against Luton Town, we had no shots on target. No shots at all. And for 35 of them minutes, we had all the players on the pitch. It's not, there's no excuse for that. I know people want me to go on a rant again. It's just pathetic. He can say whatever he wants. I haven't seen a single press conference of his. I haven't listened to him for 3 weeks now because the guy's a joke. The players were not up for that game from the very start, and it showed. And you look at, I know you mentioned Liverpool there, and you look at the two teams who we've played well against, Man United and Liverpool. And then you got Everton. We were lucky. We got a smash and grab at the end. Palace deservedly lost in the end. Luton, we probably should have lost on the balance of playing that first 20, 25 minutes. And you can guarantee that they'll play well in the first half against Man City, or until Man City inevitably score. It's shop window FC. There's something to do with Gary O'Neill. We were battered by Luton Town, and deservedly so, even before we had a player sent off.
Yeah. I mean, the irony of the whole sort of sending off was that kind of turned the game on its head, but did somehow work out well for Wolves. That I'd say, like, we were a couple of minutes preceding that, they had a couple of sort of tactical tweaks that helped, but it was bizarre how Wolves did sort of pull their fingers out when they realised they actually had a job to do. Once they had 10 men, let's talk about it, because I still haven't quite made up my mind on this, which isn't exactly great when you're supposed to be giving a reaction to incidents. I appreciate. And it's not even been helped that I did a Twitter poll on our Fancast Twitter account at Wolves Fancast, guys. Hint, hint. It did this sort of this morning, sort of thing. You know, we've all kind of had a bit of time to rest, watch match of the day. You know, did he deserve a red card? And all right, it's a slightly biased poll, but 35, yes, it's a red. 65, no, it's only a yellow. I'm trying to work out, Jafo. I guess I always like doing initial reaction. I guess your delayed reaction. What's your reaction now? Sort of, has it sort of changed at all? Do you think? What are you sort of thinking?
I'm still on the same fence I was yesterday. I still think it's a red card. Problem is, you give the referee a chance to make a decision, like he's done there by having that instance where he's moved his leg towards the player after a lockup and he's reacted. The referee can say, "Okay, you've done something to cause a collision there. You've acted in a dangerous way." Now he's going to give it the way that referees have acted, not just even in VAR times, but like previously as well. That you give them a chance to make a decision, they will. And invariably against teams like us who are fighting, and when you're in a position where you're trying to fight to stay in the Premier League, every little decision like this becomes a microcosm of the whole season. And that's the problem is that we will then focus on these decisions when we get to May. And if something's happened where we've got to the position where we got relegated, we'll go back to these games. We'll go, well, he fucked up there, he fucked up there, he fucked up there. Where invariably, Bellegarde fucked up because he gave the decision to the referee. He allowed him to say, "Okay, I can give you the red card." It doesn't matter whether it was or not. When you give a referee a chance to give that, he's going to give it 99 times out of 100. He just is.
Yeah,
completely agree. And not many people saw it in real time because obviously the ball had gone.
It's a kick. He shouldn't be doing it.
But Beckham got sent off in 1998 for this kind of stupidity. We're in 2023. You still can't do this. And yeah, I get that Tom Lockyer he's played. They've played the kind of Wimbledon-esque tactics that they were employing throughout the whole game, which is fine. You do what you do, but don't get drawn into it. And he should, if he wasn't told that this is what was going to be going on, then again, that's another strike on them. Regardless, it was a stupid thing to do. And like Jafar says, you don't give the ref the opportunity to say, and yet it's a tangle. You and wait. He wasn't impeded, but you don't do what. It was just brain dead stupidity. It's a blatant. If it was against, I know people say the card because obviously they're biased, but if it was against us, you'd want him sent off, wouldn't you? So there's your answer.
Yeah, I think I agree, and I think my kind of sort of take on it very similar to yourselves. Like he's in a late, look, he is is trying to impede him. Of course, he's doing the kind of whole, I'm not doing anything wrong whilst doing anything wrong. But by doing that, he's kind of taken himself out of the game as much as Bellegarde. Do you know what I mean? Like he didn't. I'm trying to feel what I've said. Like, we'd progressed the ball forward and they were without their centre half, their captain. Like it's not like it's doing them any harm. And it almost, what it reminded me of? Like, I know you're sort of thinking Beckham. It reminded me more of Lauren James in the World Cup for women's.
Yeah.
Where slightly Bellegarde. And look, I've seen the comments. I know we've had a couple on YouTube. It's very much, he was trying to push himself away. He's trying to get himself away. He is subtly trying to push himself away by sticking his studs into an opponent's midriff. Let's not beat around the bush. And it's silly and it's frustrating. And Bellegarde just wants to get on with the game, whereas Lockyer doesn't. They say it's only himself he's kind of got to blame in a way, and it's really frustrating because he's been such a bright spark from what we've seen so far, and it's really kind of just going to hold him back. I mean, we lose him for 3 games now. I mean, again, I'll go to Stu on this one because I can never remember. Do the League Cup games count for the ban as well? So yeah, we're losing for two. We're losing for 2 league games, which is really unfortunate in my opinion. Ed, how about you? I know you sort of said, it is still a kick, isn't it? How much sympathy do you have with our man?
Oh, not much really, to be honest. I think it's a it's a daft situation. None of that situation needs to happen, does it? None of it. I don't think any of it needs to happen. I don't think, the Luton player, he doesn't need to lock him up. He doesn't need to put him in a Bret Hart figure of 4, but then doesn't then need to kick out. He could just raise the issue to a ref or a linesman. He can just say this is happening. He doesn't need to do any of it. None of that needed to happen. It just seems so daft. It just seems so daft that he put himself in that situation and then reacted in the way he did. And he's, like I said last week on the pod, he's not a kid either. That's the difference as well. He's a well-rounded central midfielder from a relatively aggressive league. That won't be the first time he'd have been in an altercation like that. He doesn't need to react like that at all.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a savvier player, and there might have been experience or however you want to call it, game mentality. I don't know how you kind of want to sort of describe it. Like, he's in a situation where I say, if they're both tangled up, get the other bloke sent off. Because the chances are, whoever kind of moves first is going to step on the other person. And I think it's just frustrating, I think. And I know I was interested in the fact that, so many people, say on our Twitter poll and, from the comments I've seen, have very much sort of said, no, it should be just a yellow. And I want to believe, but personally, I think it's a straight red, unfortunately. As a Wolf Aid 89 said, it was a red, unfortunately, but the lad was holding his legs. Dark arts from the Luton lad. Yeah. And it was frustrating. And what Wolves did sort of, I say, batten down the hatches. They made subs at half time, which looked on paper really frustrating because it was just like, okay, well, we're sticking more defenders on sort of thing, but it seemed to stem the tide. If nothing else, for what was quite literally one of my favourite moments of the season so far, because we've talked a lot about Pedro Neto. We've also talked a lot about how we much prefer him on the left wing. And he did do well when he played on the left yesterday. But his goal yesterday was a real I'm back motherfuckers, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was very similar to the one at Southampton from a similar kind of position as well. But whereas that one, he didn't blast into the top of the net like he did yesterday. But yeah, he'd been completely starved of any kind of service, any room really. And he was the only one really doing anything at all. I mean, Cunha was completely anonymous for the entire game. But you could see in his reaction and the frustration just on his face. I don't know if they that kind of cupping of the ears thing was to their fans or us. Going a bit of both, I think. So the stick that he's got from some people and me, I suppose. But yeah, it was literally the only bright spark of the entire day. And obviously we'll get onto that later, but it took a moment of magic to break down Luton Town.
Yeah, and I think that's it. And for those watching on YouTube, while Stu was giving his thoughts on it, you will have seen a video from wwfc Scott, who has a YouTube channel. He's also on Twitter as well. Do make sure you give him a follow as well, and shout out for allowing us to use your video as well. I mean, back to the goal. I mean, Defoe, I genuinely can't remember the last time I saw him be so jet healed. Again, appreciate it. Can we all just take a moment? Actually, sorry, Defoe, before I let you go on.
It's all right.
It was quite nice to see him do it to Lockyer, right?
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
In that moment, Lockyer, okay. I think as he got said earlier, the dark arts only brings you bad karma. So Lockyer, you can go fuck yourself for that one, honestly. But yeah, as you say, it's fantastic to see Neto back, and we've said all of this season, to be honest, that he's starting to look more like himself. And we're talking about an injury that he had where he basically broke his kneecap. That's a horrendous injury for anyone, let alone a professional athlete to go through. It's to take a player who's as you say, a speedster. He's someone who's so quick with the ball, and he's now got to go into every game and have that sort of thing in the back of his head. Oh, what if I do it again? What? Because it was so innocuous when it happened. It was a bad challenge, but the way it ended up was not how we'd expect. So to see him now playing himself, and the thing is with Pedro Neto, he's someone who just exudes this sort of natural confidence and like energy, and he's so infectious to see him around, and he's always someone who's smiling when he's playing football and smiling when he's around the training ground. That you want players like this to be happy and in these impressive and happy moments and doing things that can put a smile not only on his face but on everyone else's, because I'm going to be corny now, actually, because I don't normally do corny too much. But, the out of darkness cometh light. That comes down to players like this and players who do special things and have special moments. They are our light in darkness that we're going through at the moment. So hopefully he can continue this sort of vein of form that's starting coming out now, and that he can start showing things that are special and what shows why he's been linked to clubs like Arsenal in the past and why, he was able to score the fantastic goals like he did against Chelsea pre-injury, where, he broke in the last couple of minutes and smashed it into the bottom corner. Players, bring this Pedro Neto back. I want to see him again because he is a beautiful man who brings joy to my heart.
I feel like whatever save is not do that justice, is it? Go on, Ed.
Very talismanic, isn't he? I think that's what we're going for. I think that he seems to be a player that wants to be that player as well. He wants to be the man. And I think he's maybe realised that we've lost some players over the summer and over the last sort of 18 months or so. And maybe he does need to step up. And it looks like he really wants to. I mean, he's creating more goal-scoring opportunities than nearly everyone else in the league. Yesterday, he puts the burners on and gets past... the guy that tried to, that did effectively get one of his teammates sent off, and he smashes it in the net, and he loves celebrating it. I think he's trying to propel himself to be that talisman, to be that light in the darkness that Jeff O's talking about, that I think we really need at this point, because if we don't have him doing that, we could still be playing now and probably not score.
1,000%.
Putting himself forward for interviews as well, like he was on Match of the Day last night. Takes a lot, especially with some of the characters that are in the team as well. And I know that can...
I think we might have lost you there. We assume we made a salient point, but he is right. And I think, as you were saying, Ed, like we've had a comment on Facebook from Dean Westwood saying Neto showed actual passion for me yesterday, and that means a lot for fans, doesn't it? And you're right, it almost feels like he stepped up to take that responsibility. And I know people say, when you look at the people who, we've lost in the summer, they might not necessarily contribute goals, particularly like last season, like Jimenez, Traore. But he seems to have taken some of that burden for himself. In terms of that, and I think that's really what we need, because otherwise, you say where the goals coming from, and it's good. It's still a big question mark over his team, isn't it?
Yeah. I think there's a level of passion to his play that isn't forced. I think he means it, doesn't he? I think that's the point. And I think Jaffo's spot on the fact that celebration, that goal, was a player maybe also realising he's coming back to his best. He can trust his body a bit more, maybe. I think there was something special in that goal, and I hope it's something that he can kick on with.
Yeah, I must say, one thing I do love about Pedro Neto is his unbridled joy and, frankly, unprepared celebrations a lot of the time. I am thinking that, and like it's the goal he scored against Liverpool that never was, where he just does anything and everything. It's about 6 celebrations in one because he's just loving the moment, and I've got a full on appreciation for that. As I say, a couple of fun comments we've had on YouTube regarding this. What I thought were interesting was regular contributor still with the Neto's goal looked like vintage Gareth Bale, which I agree with. And also Sean Crow, regular contributor as well. I woke my sleeping newborn when he scored that goal. Lot. Being there, pal. It's look, crying only lasts for a finite amount of time if you've woken the baby, but goals stay forever. which is great parenting advice. Anyway, so we're down to 10 men. We've got our goal. We've shored up at the back because we were wobbly throughout. And I think before we talk about penalty, I want to talk about Craig Dawson because he is supposed to be our rock, as it were. And I don't know. I don't want to be that guy, but it doesn't feel like he has hit the standards he this season as he hit last season. And I'm trying to wonder if this is a cause for concern or not, or really just highlights why we brought in Santi Bueno to kind of step up into his shoes at some point this season.
I mean, that's why I put it in the group chat as soon as I could, because people would start having a go at Sol. But one who called balls that messed up yesterday, and they go at each other. And his hands up and rightly so. Just them two either. Shaky. He looks, for someone who's with his experience, he looks completely shorn of confidence, which is weird. When he hasn't really done, considering what we did last season here, when he was a bedrock of everything and check kind of the low of the window last January. He was the one who had more of a, as well as the man. Now he looks like the in the entire. He's shaking, making him look bad. And I thought Kilman played well yesterday. You look at it and you think, well, how have you gone from being up here to now one of the poorest players on the team? And it could just be an age thing, you just don't know. But something's happened with him.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that West Ham was so easily allowing him to go for such a small figure to a rival in the league, a club that are very close around them. And I feel like last season he made such a big impact because he was so different to what we had at the time. And Nathan Collins, he's only a young guy, he's not doing particularly great now. And I know he made a mistake yesterday as well. But having somebody come in who's experienced, who's played a lot of Premier League football, he was this little bit of different ingredient. But the thing is now, teams watch you and scout you that much that they will have honed in on every little last fault that he's got. That now, this season, they can prepare for that. And they'll have these dossiers and they'll go, okay, we're going to target him now on this point. And that's how they'll just do it, because Dawson is only got a finite amount of games left in his career now. He's getting to that age. He's probably got one season this season, maybe next at this Premier League level, and then he's going to have to start dropping down the leagues or playing 10 games a season. That Santi Bueno, hopefully, is going to be the guy who can come in and make a difference, because we need that ingredient X again. And that's something a little bit different to where Dawson came in and offered a calmer, older head, which shored up the defence. But now we need something that's going to be a little bit more chaotic. And I think that's what Bueno could bring, and something who could help us press on teams. Because I think we mentioned it earlier when we talked about the Liverpool game and us starting quite well, is because Liverpool are a counter-attacking team. They're going to allow you to step onto them. So we need somebody who can progress with the ball, and Dawson and Kilman just ain't that, really. Kilman and more so he can, but Dawson just ain't that.
It'll be really interesting to see if Santi gets a run out against Ipswich, won't it, Ed?
Yeah, I'm hoping he does. I think it'd be a good introduction to British football and English football for him. He will also get some of the more delights of longer balls and things to see how he deals with that as well. But I just think I'll be that guy, Rich. I think Dawson's out of form and he looks cack this season. That's the word I'm going to use. He doesn't look good at all for me. And he's slow on the turn. Semedo's bailing him out, but people don't want to talk about Semedo doing anything useful. And I think last year in the Lopetegui we played a lower block. He was there to head it, to kick it, to get rid. And whether it was Lopetegui's plan in the summer that changed when we had Gary O'Neill, or if it's just Gary O'Neill at all, there's now an expectation for him to have the ball a bit more, to progress the ball a bit more. And he isn't that kind of player. I mean, he was at one point, if you remember, one of the cupboards at West Brom, wasn't he, when they had 4 centre-backs. And he couldn't play with the ball at that point when, was it Pepe Mel that came in and was awful for him? It was we all had a great joke about that, and they had 4 centre-backs and none of them could play football. He couldn't play football then when he was younger and fitter, and he can't play football now. He is, I think, a break glass in case of emergency centre-back, and we don't need a centre-back like that because he makes Kilman look worse. And Kilman's the captain. Kilman has to play right now. He's a left-sided centre-back. There aren't many of them around. We need someone to make him look better.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really, really interesting to see what happens with Dawson, because I know there's been a decent amount of stick towards Kilman, his leadership abilities, his lack of vocalness or aggression, I guess, or leadership in general, however you want to look at it. But yeah, Dawson seems to I think this probably says more about Kilman. He seems to need someone next to him to play well for him to play really well. I thought Kilman did well yesterday. In fact, he mopped up after Dawson at least once yesterday. But yeah, I feel like this is going to be like one of those threads that we're going to want to follow in the next couple of weeks to sort of see how it fans out. But we're doing well, and then the game turned on its head yet again with a bit of a debatable penalty. And I don't have a Twitter poll on this one. But again, I guess it goes back to your initial reaction, your reaction now. Now we've all had a thorough, in-depth look at the bylaws of the game, worked out which ones were retracted back in 2021, I believe, and which ones have been falsely shared. I mean, Jafo, where's your head at with it? Or is it a heart versus head situation? I guess.
I think it's probably a heart versus head. It's so difficult nowadays. We live in a world of ever-changing referees, rules, and convoluted strings and attachments to by rules and understanding of it's got to touch this person's hand and from following this moment. He'd have to stir his tea clockwise and then it will be a penalty. It's so confusing. If he hits his hand straight from the motion where it's hit his foot, how can it be a penalty? You cannot control. I'd have the same thing today. I watched the Tottenham game and Arsenal got that penalty, and the ball's been hit at like 80 miles an hour and he's half a metre away. How can anyone have the mental capacity to make a decision to bring their hand into a position to block a ball in less than half a second? You don't even, if you look at the highway code and how that addresses braking distances and mental, you don't even talk about that in quickness, that sort of speed. It's absolutely fucking ridiculous. These referees live on fucking cloud cuckoo land. They had engineers helping them in the first season of VAR, and the engineers got that fucking pissed off. I can say that with authority because I spoke to some of them. They got pissed off that they quit because they couldn't stand working with people like not Howard Webb at the time because he wasn't there, but people like Mike Dean who would not fucking listen because they think that they understand how fucking science works, but they're fucking stupid. They have not a clue. They've never played football at any level, and they don't actually understand how science works because they're fucking stupid. I'm sorry to rant like that, but it's fucking annoying.
I'm just gonna didn't put you in spotlight mode for it, to be honest.
I appreciate that.
Stu, I know your intent's a bit dodgy, a bit like the penalty decision. Again, I know you're a stickler for rules, but again, where's your head at with it?
I mean, at the time, I thought, well, fair enough. You can't. That is the point, that accidental handball is still an offence. It doesn't matter how sensible it is to say it's not. It is. But if your arms above your head outstretched, which again is when you kind of challenging like that, that's what your body does. So there's strike one. It's a natural position for your body to be at. Two, it took 0.2 seconds, I think they measured it on Match of the Day, to hit from the time it left his boot to hitting his shin and then his hand. So there's strike 2 and 3. But that weird little bylaw that it doesn't matter because unless it's a blocking motion and then it hits your hand, that I said at the time afterwards, I thought something weird is about this because it's not as straightforward as it seems. And I said that to a few people on the couch on the way back, and then the usual thing of sticking up for referees. But this is why you sit on holiday and spend 6 hours reading books, because unless you do. But why? This is the point. Why should you have to do this to understand what's going on? Yes, I did, Mike. There is photos on Twitter if you go and find it. Reading the FA handbook and handbook.
Stu legitimately goes to North Yorkshire every year to read
Whitby, right? It's Whitby, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He goes Dracula experience. then he might go to a really nice fish and chip shop. Otherwise, it's straight onto a pier. Sits between the whale bones, and he just takes it all in.
Yeah, studies. But at the same time, saying all that, it might be factually correct by some kind of bent interpretation of the rule, that's some subsection that was redacted. But to the normal person who pays 30 quid to go there, millions around the world, and millions and millions of pounds that rest on these things, not Whitley Bay, Whitby, get that right, different place. But yeah, it's stupid, isn't it? It's just absolutely ridiculous.
So part.
It's not why the handbook. It's Lex I, not Lexus's. Yeah. It's not why the handball rule was brought in, was it?
No.
I mean, I don't want to match Jaffo's rant because I don't think I can do it as well, but it's not a penalty. It's never, and I would genuinely pretty much almost as outraged if we'd have got a penalty from it, because it's not what you want to see from a game of football. And when I think Jaffo brought it up, the Arsenal game earlier, I was going up the wall at the TV, not that anyone cared, that if they didn't give that, then that makes the decision yesterday even worse, because realistically, that's probably more of a handball. And that wasn't a handball today either. Joao Gomez cannot do anything about that ball hitting his hand. He's not deliberately done it. He's not done anything to... I don't know how it's a penalty. I genuinely don't know how it's a penalty. And it's not why the handball was brought in. And it doesn't fundamentally go to the laws of the game why that rule was brought in. That rule was brought in to stop people basically cheating and gaining an advantage by using their hand to change the direction of a ball, or to stop the ball, or to gain some advantage of it. He doesn't gain anything from that ball hitting his hand, and there is nothing he can do about it. And who can stretch in a game of football in less than 2 seconds and not try and balance themselves for the shot to be deflected? And he needs to be upright. He can't leave his hands down, fall over, then he's out of the play for the next phase of the game. No one in in the history of the world will be able to stretch like that and not move their other limbs. It's just not how it happens. And you don't go down the rabbit hole of saying VAR is against Wolves because VAR is just useless, full stop. Well, no, VAR isn't. The people that run it, like Jafo says, are useless. And the rules of the game are being changed and tweaked that much that Stu's probably going to need an extra week next season in Whitby.
Right there, when falling as well, along with the obviously not to listen, but in that earlier, it stopped the ball going into the net because I think that's, regardless of how close it was, I think that's probably in the end why it was given. But he was falling, and the whole thing about if your hand is supporting your body falling, then that doesn't count. He was off a foot away. So when you got threads like that, it's farce. It's deliberate. How think that?
I don't think we should have been worrying about a bad decision against Luton. I think that's what all this also comes down to.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt the same thing against Man United. Is that in that game where we obviously played well and created chances, and we instantly felt that we got over by the Onana collision with Kaladzic. We need to be focusing on ourselves really and saying how that we win games like this. In that moment, we created enough in that game to score chances and to score goals. And in yesterday, we should be creating a lot more chances against a side like Luton. But the problem is, this is not this season. This is a recurring theme. This is the same thing we've said the last 3 years. And it's kind of becoming a bit tiresome to keep saying it, that we don't create enough chances. We don't do it against teams who sit back. It is so, the perfect word to say, boring. We do not do enough against sides who are going to sit in. And that is why, we've been perennially falling down this league, because we're not able to get results against these lower sides. And the bigger sides, the Liverpools, Man Cities and the Arsenals of this world, are learning how to play against us. And we've lost our players to them. Diogo Jota going to Liverpool, people like this. We're losing our players to them. So we're strengthening them, and we're getting weaker every season. So it is sleepwalking to relegation at this point, and that's the problem. Is that something's got to change fundamentally and evolve, and now it's stepping towards a revolution within the football club. But something has to evolve within the way that we play football to create chances. And the philosophy of the club has to step forward.
Something's got to give.
Yeah, interestingly, just for what you said, and I don't know. Something that worried me actually was Gary Neal post-match sort of saying, we're going to have to fight for this season. We got 41 points last season. We lost some huge players. Today, our level, my job's to fix it. And it felt like a little bit defeatist in a way. Like, I don't know, just it feels like the mentality at Wolves at the moment is let's try and finish 16th. And that's where we're at. And I know that's what it is, but I sort of think if that's where we've set our expectations, that's the only place we're going to get. Whereas we all know that the difference between finishing 16th and 9th is that there's not actually a whole fat lot in it. And I don't know, it feels just like the mentality is just not there anymore to be resolute, to have that actually, like, we're not going to fucking concede. Like, that is not what we do. Or if we do, it's not. Yeah.
How unimaginative are those quotes that you just brought up on the screen, Rich? They are as dull. They are as dull as our performances. That's Mike Bassett. He's basically going to go sign 2 players called Benson and Hedges if we carry on this way. It is. Oh, we got 41 points last year. That wasn't you, mate. That wasn't you. Do something different. His substitutions are awful. I am sick to death of him already. He's so boring. He's so vanilla. He's so generic. And he comes out. I know press conferences after the game, you're not going to be maybe his scintillating best, but they are so dull, those comments. There is nothing that he does not inspire me at all that he's going to get us out of this boring repetitive downward spiral like Jaffo's just talked about.
Well, Ed, we are 6 games into Gary Neal's tenureship league games wise. The big question is, and I think we've all kind of got a bit of a flavour in terms of where we're at to at a club at the moment, and there is that, at least for some of that underlying negativity. For some, like Stu, for example, it is less underlying and more jumping on top of the bed. So I guess, Ed, after that, my question is to you: where do you sit on the gonometer? I guess green is we're happy, we're thriving. Yellow is, let's give him time. He hasn't had a pre-season. We're only 6 games in. Amber, and I think sort of most people at 12 o'clock at the moment, I think Amber's like, oh, we've got questions. And then red is gone. So I'll start with you, Ed. Where are you on the gonometer?
I think as far to the bottom of amber that it's almost in red that I can be. The only reason it's probably not in red is I don't know who we bring in. And I know that's a question for later, but I don't know who replaces him. So I just think he just has no idea with what we're supposed to be doing with his team. And it's difficult. He came in with no real chance to get to know the players. He doesn't know, but I think his in-game management is what really worries me the most.
Mm-hmm. Stu, very quickly, how about you? Where are you at with Gary? Are you getting rid of him tomorrow? Are we giving him time? And frankly, if you are, how much time are we giving him?
I mean, the whole screen. I want him now. I've got no faith in the bloke. I haven't for weeks. You can see as soon as remember what I said on Twitter, and people slag me off for it straight away, which is understandable. That Man United performance was not his team. That was not how he would set up a team, and they haven't since. And you say, oh yeah, the first half against Liverpool, but they're in the shop window on telly. And like I said earlier, they'll do the same against Man City. But if you look at the rest of the performances against Everton, against Palace, against Luton Town, which they deserve full team name because they're in the Premier League. But every other performance has been shit. And it's been worse than it was under Bruno Lage. And Bruno Lage got more points than this bloke. And he was hounded out of town. And I know there was a great, I can't remember who put it on. I apologize for that.
I wish we knew as well, folks. So sorry for Stu's internet again, guys. I guess, Jaffo, I was going to say you tend to be the voice of reason on occasion.
Yeah, on the occasion.
On the occasion, and I know you well enough to know that we're potentially not on one of these occasions. Where are we sitting?
I mean, I'm still in the yellow. The thing is, as I say, we need evolution, and things like this take time. And we need to understand that we are doing things a little bit different this season. The way we're approaching signings, the way we're looking at the team. We need to all be pulling in the right direction. Gary's got a very difficult job. There's not many people who could come in and do the job that he's done. I know, granted, it's not the best, but doing the job that he's doing, starting it on the eve of the season after Luton dropped us in the shit, he needs to have a little bit more time just to try and adapt it. And we talked about it earlier. This is the first time that he's played the same 11 from the previous game. It just needs a little bit more. We're not going to be relegated by the end of October. No sides are relegated by the end of October. So if we lose every game between now and then, yeah, I think probably he should be having a little bit of self-control and saying, yeah, I'll walk if they lose every game between now and then. But we've not seen enough from this team to say that we need to change something, because I think that is very much jumping at the gun. And we need to say that Gary needs a little bit more time just to put his ideas across. Him and Sean Derry are working on the training ground every day to try and change a side that was coached by Julian Lopetegui, who's a very different character. Before that, Bruno Lage, a very different character. A lot of these players have stemmed through these different these systems. And I know you say that, Lee, about you trust in Gary O'Neill more than the Wi-Fi tonight, but we are.
That's killed me, Lee.
I don't even know where to go from this point. But yeah, he needs a little bit more trust from everyone. Everyone needs to pull in the right direction. Believe in the process of what we're trying to do and what the club are doing now. We've got rid of the old hierarchy that was there. You know, we are going in a different direction. So just believe in the club, and that's all I can say.
We're going down. That's the direction we're going.
Yeah. I'm used to it, man. I'm used to it at this point. You know, we have happiness, and then they just shit on all of our dreams.
So Pedro Neto's going to get sent off next week.
Yeah.
It's what happened. It's what we all know will happen. I can't have that swell of inevitability sometimes. But we did get a really interesting question from Twitter Corner this week, which stems in quite nicely to what we were saying. And it's from T. Andrew Caddick. He said, if you're in the gone out camp, who would you replace him with? And I think it's an interesting question. I mean, I think there's still a lot of people probably sort of touting Graham Potter still as the most available person. Any other names sort of springing to mind for yourselves, Vince?
No, and I think that's why I think we probably do need to get in Defoe's camp and get behind him, because there isn't anyone banging down the door that's available. And Potter is going to need time as well to implement his own system. And how much time do we have? We'd give Gary O'Neill, the next 6 to 7 weeks to get and implement his system. God forbid we lose all of them, and then we bring Potter in, and he'll need the same amount of time with the same amount of players, with the same players to bring in his own system. All of a sudden, we're at Christmas with next to no points. So we probably do need to pull up and shut up at the moment and see where we are at Christmas.
Yeah. Defoe, how about you? Are you sort of any other sort of names who I guess either long term, or I think the other name sort of I heard him sort of shamelessly stealing off social media was Ruud van Nistelrooy.
Oh no, I'm just not a big fan of his. Really, I think it'd be too much of a risk to bring in somebody who's only done a decent job in the Dutch league. You know, PSV have gone completely on their head anyway. They've gone Peter Bosz this season, which seems a big turnaround from what they were trying to achieve with young players like Javi Simmons. But yeah, I'm just looking now on the list of people who are out of management. You've got everyone's a big name. The problem is you've got the likes of Joachim Löw, Hansi Flick, Conte, Zidane's of this world. That there's no real manager that's going to come in and be wanting to prove themselves. You're talking people like Jesse Marsch, Ralph Hasenhüttl, Nathan Jones. These are not names you really want near your football club. And no disrespect to them, but they're not managers I want to bring in. I think Gary O'Neill was a dangerous enough choice without bringing in the real life version of the American coach. I totally forgot the name of the TV show.
Ted Lasso.
Yeah, Ted Lasso, thank you. But yeah, the real life Ted Lasso.
But that's the problem. All of their managers that you listed are better than Gary O'Neill anyway, regardless of how bad they are. And like I said yesterday, Rob Edwards is a better manager than Gary O'Neill. It's just, this is how bad it is. That this guy, when we lose to Ipswich, I know I dropped out last time, or the people are trying to get me like Russell Brand did. But if you look, when we lose on Tuesday night, he will have the same record that Steve Davis did.
What, the one time your internet doesn't cut out, Stu, was there?
They know.
They know, yes.
Unbelievable. Slightly lost words, to be honest, guys. But it seems like a good enough place to end the show before we get ourselves in litigation minefield, as usual. To be honest, with a fancast. But yeah, it's not all hunky-dory here, is it, guys? But hopefully a win in the Carabao will see us through. It's not going to be an easy game. I think it's going to be definitely harder than Blackpool. But I don't know. I think he's at least got the opportunity to push through a couple more guys again. I think Atraore, when he came on, did really well. Bit of an odd sub on the face of it, coming on for our only striker. But I did think Booba looked good. So hopefully he gets a decent run out in the cup.
I guess it also depends how serious Ipswich take it as well, right?
Yeah.
Which is saying something that's a concern.
It's just like, we've just got to really hope it's slowly opposition phone it in, to be honest.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see. And as Martin has said in the YouTube comments, the deep state are after you, Stu.
Oh, they are.
Martin, we already knew. And Stu does so much to go throughout everyday life, just under the radar, to be honest. In what he wears, what he does. So we'll see. I'll say we'll wrap up the show there, guys. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. So thank you so much for bearing with us as well. Apologies for the internet connection on a few of our behalves. Let's just blame the deep state and we'll move on. We'll blame them for stopping us putting out this very professional production. Until next time, though, we'll be probably looking to do our next show after the Ipswich game, which will be reaction to that, plus talking about the game of the weekend as well, which little Dan will bring you. But until then, if you're not already, shout out to everyone who's watching on YouTube. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe if you can. It means so much for us growing the channel. I know it doesn't seem like a lot on the face of it, but it really helps kind of drive the audience moving forward and kind of raising awareness of what we're doing. And it also makes sure that you're getting the best content out there from us, from the match reactions to the preview shows to Gully's excellent tactical analysis as well for a further in-depth breakdown of the games. Make sure you follow it at Wolves Fancast as well on all the usual places across social media. And until next time, it's goodbye from Stu if his internet allows us.
I'm still here, I think. Goodbye, everyone.
It's goodbye from Jeffo.
Good to be back.
It's goodbye from Ed.
See you later, guys.
And it's goodbye for me. I'll see you next time, guys.